Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Amy Martin, and I am let's just get this started. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. We are excited to be here. This is a highly anticipated conversation with the team at Broadview Credit Union to hear how they integrated a freight farm of their own into their organization, but then how they purchased and donated 3 additional farms for nonprofits organizations in their community. Like I said, my name is Amy Martin. I am the Freight Farms Events Manager. And for those of you who aren't that familiar with our mission at Freight Farms, it is to build accessible, modular, vertical farming technology that empowers people to grow fresh, healthy food in their local communities, wherever that may be. We are most well known for our container farms. We do have additional products and services like software, but that's kind of what we're mainly known for. And you'll be able to see a really impactful way to implement them, our container farms, in today's webinar with the credit union team and our guest speaker from a food bank. So before we get into introductions, we are going to quickly go through the agenda. And throughout today's webinar, we are going to discuss, Broadview Credit Union and how they got started, their agriculture program at Broadview, how a freight farm fit into it, expanding their reach and donating 3 additional farms, the impact each organization is having on their community, what each organization is growing. And then we're going to hear from Nick, who is the guest speaker from the Regional Food Bank of Northeastern New York. So before we get into that and introductions, I did just want to mention that the whole webinar is recorded. So don't stress if you miss any details or have to leave a little bit early. And we will be doing a live Q&A towards the end of the presentation with all 3 members that are here today. So if you have any questions that come up throughout the event, please submit them in the Q&A feature, and we'll get to as many as we can. And if we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards so that we can get those questions answered for you. All right, jumping right into it. Can each of you introduce yourselves to the audience, kind of which organization you are a part of and your roles? Kathy, we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Kathy Lanny. I'm the Chief Community Officer here at Broadview Federal Credit Union.
And I'm Megan Noss. I am the Farm Operations Lead at Broadview Federal.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick Pisani. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with the Regional Food Bank of Northeastern New York. We reside right here in Latham, New York.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into Broadview Federal Credit Union, the agriculture program, and just get an idea of, what we're talking about today. So, Kathy, can you provide an overview of Broadview Federal Credit Union?
Absolutely. So Broadview Federal Credit Union is one of the largest credit unions in New York State. We have about 500,000 members. Of the credit union, we're $8 billion in assets. At the credit union, we really embrace the philosophy of people helping people. So we have a very strong philanthropic arm of the credit union where we make our contributions of time, talent, and treasure out into the community. And addressing the issue of hunger is one of our, I'll call them our sweet spots, or one of the things we really focus a tremendous amount of energy, time, and investments into trying to find solutions to address this in our communities.
Perfect. That was a great overview. All right, so now that we know that, can you just dive a little bit deeper into providing an overview of the program, the agriculture program, and kind of where you saw freight farms fitting into that?
Sure. So I was at the World Business Forum in 2016 with our CEO, Michael Castellana. And at that forum, there was a gentleman who was talking about using farming and agriculture to really change the landscape of the community from perspective that community was in the Bronx was a food desert. The graduation rate in that community was incredibly low. And so he really felt this was an opportunity to use agriculture, use farming, hydroponic farming specifically, to try to make an impact in that community. And he was very successful in doing that. So he was jumping around the stage, and I mean literally jumping around the stage. And I'm texting Michael. I'm on one end of the auditorium, and he was in a different area. And I'm texting him, "We need to do this. We need to do this." And I think for us, as a community, we're really good at serving hunger, right? We support our organizations, our food pantries, the food bank, all those organizations who are actually feeding people. But, I think this really we saw this as a real opportunity to just start to invest in trying to find a solution where we could address hunger, not just by giving money or giving food, right? So I think for us, it really gave us a chance to say, we're going to put a stake in the ground here and see if this really can make a difference. So we looked at freight farms and went out to meet with freight farms, Michael and I, and, kind of explained our vision that we wanted to do this. We wanted to get a farm, test it ourselves and make sure that anyone anywhere can grow 365. And we were very successful in doing that right from the get-go. So, I think for us, it was like, let's see if it'll work. And if it works, we're going to replicate. And it really gave us an opportunity to, once we figured out that we could do it, to say, what, others can do it too. And to try to find other nonprofit partners, we would give them the opportunity to do it.
Amazing. You just said a lot there that we'll kind of pick apart throughout the presentation, but, if you go anywhere on Freight Farm's website, and a lot of our marketing material, our goal is to empower people to grow fresh food year round, like you just mentioned, no matter where you are in the world. That can mean a lot to a lot of different people, or a lot of different things to different people, different communities. So I think it's a great goal to have in mind, because you don't realize that, you're limited on growing seasons with outdoor traditional farming, and a lot of people depend on fresh food in some cases, and that could be gone away with, but whether it's a bad storm or, an animal eating your crops or things like that. So
I think this gave us an opportunity to provide access to healthy produce, right? So if you go to the food pantry, right, stocked full of, cans and pastas and peanut butter and jelly, but there's really not traditionally a lot of produce. So we really felt this was a chance to bring that into that space and give access to something healthy, really healthy and fresh, to the folks who visit at the pantry.
yeah, that's amazing. All right, so before we dive more into the Freight Farm operation at Broadview, can you just quickly touch on your additional, the pink ribbon garden and other areas that Broadview is focusing on their community?
Sure. So as a credit union, we like to say we're a little bit unique, right? And so we have had this opportunity for staff to participate in what we called circles of interest, which was really an opportunity if you had an interest in reading, or you had an interest in the stock market, or you had an interest in building things. It gave staff an opportunity to kind of remove themselves from their traditional role for a period of time throughout their employment, to say, what, I want to do something different. So we had an organic gardening circle, right? And so we had, I think, 6 or 9 beds up in the back parking lot. And once we got the Freight Farm rolling, we said, what, we think we can grow even more. So we now have 31 raised beds up in that parking lot, which Megan and her team tend to, certainly during the growing season. But another unique thing was we were given the opportunity through Libby's Legacy Foundation to build what is called the Pink Ribbon Garden. So we supported that project out in Altamont, New York, which is a very large pink ribbon garden, literally shaped like the breast cancer pink ribbon. So what we did is we built a mini version among the beds at our location in up on that upper parking lot. So it gives an opportunity for women who are experiencing breast cancer treatment or who are survivors to come in and grow. So they come in and they work the garden, they grow, but then they also harvest and give one to themselves and then give to someone else who is undergoing treatment. So it really allows anyone, no matter of your circumstances, to be philanthropic, to give, right? And so they are so appreciative of having that opportunity to do that. And research shows that if you eat healthy, organic food, your chances of recurrence for breast cancer is dramatically lower. So this helps us to really hopefully impact the health outcomes of these women who are undergoing treatment or who are, survivors.
That's amazing. And I also think, on top of the giving piece of it, I think gardening can be so therapeutic,
Absolutely.
mentally, physically. So, and just being outdoors, and in this case, I think it's an overall amazing program.
I think we could solve world's problems weeding a garden.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. All right. So now that we have a little bit more information about Broadview and kind of where we started, let's talk about the actual freight farms in New York. So you touched on in the beginning, testing this out and then providing, if it worked out, providing to 3 other organizations. So in addition to the one that Broadview owns and operates, there are 3 additional farms that were donated. So let's start with Broadview's farm of its own. Kind of just talk us through what you wanted, like how you were able to test it, what were your goals with testing it, that then you saw that this was achievable and you wanted to expand on this.
So when we got the farm, we wanted to make sure that we obviously could be successful growers, right? That we could manage this this farm and make sure that we were able to produce what we thought we could when we got it. And we were very fortunate to have Megan Noss on staff, who applied for the role of farmer. And Megan brings a wealth of experience and knowledge, both in the food service industry as a graduate of the Culinary Institute, but also has a world of knowledge about farming in general. So it was really a wonderful fit for us to bring Megan on as our farmer. And she, like I said, hit the ground running and has been successful ever since. So once we really figured out, we can really turn this, we can generate a ton of food out of this garden. We said, okay, now it's time to look for partners where we think they could do the same, as really creating a social enterprise of sort, to allow them to grow this produce and use it in a way where they can A, generate income for themselves, B, be philanthropic themselves. And again, each of the farms that we have out into the community, they all have a little bit of a different spin, which has really been exciting. When I sat in that forum and thought, we need to do this, I never thought it would be this amazing. I really didn't. What we have seen come out of these farms, not just from produce, but of the experiences, the life experiences, the learning, the camaraderie, has been really truly inspirational for me. So we started with the Boys and Girls Club. They came to us because they have a commercial kitchen where they produce meals every single day for kids after school. And they also provide those meals to other clubs, not just their own. So they came to us for funding for that project. And we said, you know what? We're not going to do that. We'd like to propose doing something a little bit different. We'd like to propose giving you a farm. And they have really embraced that opportunity full circle. I mean, it's been amazing. So what their spin is, the kids actually go in and farm. So the kids are learning about how to grow in the farm. They're learning the business side of the farm. So if I grow this food, what do I do with it? How do I generate income, right? But they're also eating it. So they make smoothies and all kinds of fun stuff in the farm. So that farm has been amazing. And that they just recently have a deal with another organization in our community, Capital Roots. So they're growing specifically for Capital Roots as well. So that's been really a very successful partnership. And then in Schenectady, the Schenectady City Mission, one of the things that their executive director noticed was the life expectancy and the health outcomes of folks in his zip code were dramatically different than 1 or 2 zip codes over. He said, you know what? I got to change that. So Mike, they provide shelter to individuals in the community and also a daily community meal. So we said to Mike, how about we'll give you a farm? And he's like, fantastic. So that farm not only serves the folks in their facility at their daily meal, but it also serves other nonprofits. So any extra he donates to other nonprofits in the community. And then he also provides it to the Green Market, which is a farmer's market in the Schenectady area as well. And again, he also provides food, the packaged lettuce that he puts together in his own food pantry, so people can kind of grab and go. So he's seen a tremendous amount of interest in the farm, and folks are really loving the lettuce that he serves at his meals every single day. I was actually there the other day serving meals with some of my staff members, and he said, "Would you like a salad?" And every single person was like, "Yes, I do." So that's been really cool to see that transformation in his community, and we're hoping over time we're going to see those health outcomes really get better. So that's really the goal for Mike and the city mission. And then our partners at the regional food bank, one of their struggles, and I'm sure Nick is going to talk about that, is getting access to a variety of different or culturally diverse greens and produce. And so, our growing season here in upstate New York is a little bit limited. So this really gives them the ability to grow food, like I said, 24/7, 365, but grow food that's hard to get. So again, they're doing the culturally diverse greens, and they're able to now have that, give access to that in the community all the time. So that's really hopefully going to be a big game changer for them.
Amazing. All right. So now that we have an idea of, Broadview and how you're owning and operating that, and then the program and a snippet about each. And also I just wanted to touch on, we came out with or released a Grow Food Here episode that is lengthier in details about Broadview and focuses on them and kind of their mission and their goal with the farms and these programs. And we're going to release a smaller episode for each of these organizations so we can really dive into each organization and kind of tell their story in more of a light. So stay tuned for that. All right. So Meg, let's jump into freight farming at Broadview. And just kind of, we're going to touch on everything farming related. So let's start with, when was the farm delivered, and when did you become the full-time operator?
So the farm was delivered in January of 2018, which was our original LGM style. And we opened it up right away. So I want to say it's within the week. We went to boot camp at the beginning of January, and then had opened up the doors and launched the farm within a month of receiving it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
So just to quickly touch on, Megan mentioned training. That is something that you can do in Boston, something we call farm camp, and it's a 2-day intensive training that helps you understand the farm and kind of take it back home to launch your own. So that's amazing that you were able to launch it within a month. That's great.
We actually, I've attended all 3 of the different styles since the LGM. So when the City Mission Farm got their farm in 21, it was all virtual. So we did the boot camp or freight farm camp virtually. And then Liz and I, the farmer from the food pantries, went last March to do the green wheels.
Yeah, virtual farm camp was quite the time during
That
COVID.
was very different.
Very different, and I applaud everybody who was able to stay on. I think it was like 3 half days, but I am glad that those times are over and we can welcome people back into our headquarters. So, okay, Kathy kind of mentioned a little bit about your background, but how did you get into farming, and did you have any previous agriculture experience?
Yes. So as she said earlier, I am a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, but my love of food started really young. I actually worked on organic farms since the time, I want to say I was about 12, and I worked distilling essential oils, so mostly with flowers and things like that. But I also grew up on a homestead, so organic gardening has always been part of who I am. And then also, as I graduated from the CIA and moved out into the industry, I really focused on farm to table. So this was an excellent transition for me. I also have background in plumbing and electrical work from working with my grandfather, who worked at GE for like 40 years, and like that's just in my blood. So yeah, I heard about this, and Kathy I had an interview with her and I was like, I think I'm your girl. I really think I was made for this.
Perfect. I did not know that about you growing up on a farm. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, a homestead. We had
Yeah.
like chickens and organic gardens and lambs, and things like that.
Fun. All right. So where is the farm located in relevance to the credit union?
The farm is actually located right behind the main entrance to our operations spot at 700 Bertroon Creek Boulevard in Albany. So we put a pad down, which is not necessary, I will say, but we did. We poured a slab and put the farm right in the back. So as you come around the corner, you can't miss it. So it's right there for all to see.
I'm sure you get a lot of questions about it.
Yes, we do. Especially our new hires, their first day, they come to that spot for their orientation, and everyone wants to know what's going on in the farm. What is that thing back there? But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we'll touch on community reactions and just kind of that piece to it. But even people seeing our farms in Boston, they're just so like blown away. So I'm sure that people have so many questions and thoughts. All right, now jumping into kind of the operations of the farm. Can you talk us through what your day-to-day is like, Meg?
Well, in the farms, it's very secular. So you always start like depending on the day of the week and who's picking up, it's harvest and transplant and seed, and you basically just continue with that with quite a bit of maintenance thrown in there. So it's maintaining the farm and the appropriate levels within the farm, which after a while, this is, gosh, my 7th year grape farming. So after a while, you just kind of get a flow of, you can walk into the farm and you can smell when something's off or something needs to be taken care of. And you can kind of read the plants and understand like what they might need. Oh, if they're burning here, it might mean that they have too much humidity, check the humidity. And you all have great software to help with that, which is always a resource for us. So basically, it's just like any garden. You can't sow the seeds until you have room in the columns. So we just move through. We do it in a 5-week rotation. So we have a crop every week for harvest.
Perfect. And that's the overall goal, is to kind of get on that schedule. So you're harvesting something every single week. But you have to get to that point where you're harvesting something every single week.
But you're also transplanting and seeding every single week.
Right. Yes. To stay on that harvesting schedule. That way you can have the output and deliver to your customers or your community, whatever your case may be. But what was the learning curve like for you with the actual farm technology and kind of just getting in that rhythm, in that schedule after attending training or just in general? What was the learning curve like for you?
Well, it's like when you graduate from college, like if you go for engineering or you go for cooking, you're not an engineer the moment you get your degree, and you're not a chef the moment you step out of school. You have to learn, you have to understand the workings and be able to read the machine and really understand your software and be able to really just understand what's going on. And the longer you're in there, the easier it gets.
Definitely. I think you said that perfectly, because while the farm comes, set up with the nursery station and the cultivation area, and there's panels in there that you hang up, you still have to learn and kind of get used to how you like things set up and how you like to operate in your farm, and just understanding the technology and the software that goes along with the actual farm itself. So I think a lot of people hesitate to say that there is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get up and running and you're kind of past that and you walk in, like you said, if you can almost smell something is not where it should be, or you look at your plants and you're like, oh, maybe there could be a little more water. Did something happen where the water didn't turn on, or something like that, where you just kind of know these things right off when you walk in the farm and you're looking or smelling or feeling. But yeah, I think you said it perfectly because it's
And
not like,
always with the nonprofit farms, I'm always there available for any kind of mentorship. They're able to call me and I help them in any way that I can as far as these things. And a lot of it is just, don't worry, it's not going to break. Everything's going to be okay, you know, and just like being reassured that you got this, you understand this, we've learned this already. We can do this. You can handle this.
yeah, that's great. All right, so let's talk about actually the crops and kind of what you're growing. So take us through what you're currently growing in the farm today.
All right. Well, our primary crop right now is still Butterhead Rex, but we have also had a lot of calls for more diversity in our greens. So we've added in some kale and collards and Swiss chard. And we actually had some pretty good success with a type of carrot called Atlas, which is like a short kind of stubby carrot. And those actually ended up extremely sweet and delicious. So we might continue to grow those in the future. And yeah, we have had a lot of diversity within the farm. We started out with like a lot of basil and things like that, but really when the pandemic hit, we realized that we really needed to focus on more nutritionally dense foods. So that's when we switched to doing primarily Butterhead, which grows really well in the farms and actually produces a lot by weight of food. So that was kind of our reasoning for the switch between.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, Amy, that every farm is a little bit different, what their goals are and what they want to grow in their farm. So we donate 100% of anything we grow goes back out into our communities. So as Meg mentioned, when the pandemic hit, we said, we're just going to focus on yield. We want to get as much food out as we can. So we kind of, we love to experiment. Meg is really good at that and figuring out what can we grow in the farm, you know, the arugula and the basil and the parsley and all those good things. But we kind of turned that off a little bit just to focus on growing as much as we could. But the carrots, I just was in the farm helping Meg the other day, harvesting the carrots. They're the cutest little things. So, you know, it's kind of fun to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the variety, but we also have experimented with baby carrots and they are delicious. Everything is just like sweeter or crunchier, crispier in the farm. We also just grew snap peas and the best snap peas I've ever had. So everything's just like you mentioned, Meg, it's just sweet and delicious. All right. So, Meg, you had mentioned that you were getting calls for more of a variety. Can you expand on that? Like, who are the calls from? How do you determine what produce is going where based off requests, or how does that work?
We do a lot of requests. So I deliver each week to a nonprofit called the Sycamore Collaborative, formerly Schenectady Inner City Mission. And they have actually said to us, like, they like the lettuce, but they have actually said to us that the collard greens are their favorite, and those are the hardest for them to get. And I think as far as culturally diverse is concerned, like whatever they really want and are looking for, that's what I'm going to grow for them. I've taken requests from the Children's Cafe down in downtown Albany, just whatever it is that they're looking to grow. If they have something specific that they want for their kitchen, I love to be able to oblige. And we do that with the 33-bed conventional garden as well. So kids love butternut squashes, so we donate a lot of butternut squashes. We have a lot of watermelons and cantaloupe that come out each summer, things like that. So they're not shy about it, and I make sure that they don't feel shy about just tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to get it to you.
Amazing. That's the beauty of being able to grow year round.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to the Regional Food Bank of Northeastern New York. because as you just quickly touched on, Kathy, this is one of the organizations that you donated a farm to, and we have Nick, who introduced himself at the beginning of the presentation, here to join us to talk through their program. Before we jump in, though, I wanted to share a quick little trailer that we have to their video, kind of just highlights the key pieces to their program and how they're utilizing their farm, and more about the food bank itself.
You know, as a food banking operation, you know, the cultural relevance is a really big piece, as well as fresh produce. So the food bank does operate a traditional farm. It's a 160-acre farm, of which we till 30 to 40 acres. But traditional farming has some challenges, right? So we do live in the Northeast. We've experienced where our season gets cut short due to, you know, winter months coming early. Last year, so much rain that we weren't able to get on and reseed a second time. We've even had the, you know, entire block, so thousands and thousands of heads of lettuce planted. And just one night, overnight, you know, deer decimated that block of lettuce. So freight farming really allows us to stay humble, where traditional still is a great fit and it fits a great need. However, this farming model, the freight farm, gives us the ability to really cultivate, especially in the leafy green world, the right items that we're looking for those in need. And it does it in a way that we can grow 365 days a year, sitting here in New York State, the Northeast, with a tremendous deer population, not have to worry about all those variables, while we can still operate our traditional farm and have great output that supports as well. So we're supporting from two angles.
Perfect. All right, Nick, your time to shine. So can you just, again, quickly let us know how you're involved in the food bank in your role?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you to Kathy and the entire Broadview team for the ability to even have one of these units, right? So again, Nick Pisani, the Chief Operating Officer with the Regional Food Bank based here in the Albany area of New York State. Our service area is actually from the Canadian border all the way down to just north of New York City. So when we look at the land mass of New York State, we're nearly 41% of the land mass, you know, which has a variety of different areas that we're serving, right? Different cultures that are a part of our service territory for those in need of food. And we do that in relationship with a lot of partner agencies. We have nearly 1,000 partner agencies, whether that's soup kitchens, food pantries, backpack programs, senior facilities that enable us to get the food that, you know, we obtain. We maybe grow ourselves through a model like this, and get out to those in need.
Amazing. So you kind of answered a couple of my questions about who you serve, but just so everyone has a better understanding, the food bank in New York where you are, you produce, or I'm sorry, pack the trucks that are, for say, in the photo here and distribute through the areas that you serve all the way down to New York City, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we run nearly 50 pieces of equipment between trucks, tractors, and trailers, moving nearly 50 million pounds of food on an annual basis throughout our entire service area. So again, pretty expansive area, large portion of New York State. Fun fact, just in our service area, you could fit 2 states of Vermont right in our service area. To kind of give relevance of size, New York isn't always thought of as this big territory area. It really is, though. You know, so yeah, again, lots of food sourced from all different angles, a lot of donor partners, our wonderful US government support the state of New York through a program called Nourish New York. A lot of different models to allow us to bring food in, but not always at our control and discretion of what that food's going to be. The freight farm's different. We control exactly what we're going to grow, when we're going to grow, and we know a pretty well number of what we're going to harvest, when we're going to harvest. So it really changes the game in the cultural relevance of what we're able to provide to our partner agencies and then ultimately the neighbors.
Amazing. Yeah, New York is, I always personally forget how large New York is. Growing up in Connecticut, New York City was always the closest, and like people would always go to that. So you forget that there's this whole other piece of the state that is upstate and kind of carries all the way down. So it's a huge area. We'll talk a little bit more about the culturally diverse produce that is your focus, but kind of across the board or on average, every area that you served, were they lacking fresh produce that was consistent?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a concern. I don't know that necessarily this one freight farm solves all of it, but it definitely helps fit a piece of it. Absolutely. Produce, is one of the number one sought after items, right? It's healthy. It has all these domino effect impacts. If folks are eating healthy, right, they're going to doctor less. People are eating healthy, kind of to Kathy's point, they're less likely to have reoccurrence of breast cancer. So there's so many needs to have good fresh produce, and it's not always there. If we rewind food banking to its origins, it was quite literally just finding basically scraps out of dumpsters almost. And it's come a long way over the last 40 years. And our focus is to push ourselves to nearly 25% of what we distribute to be fresh produce. So a little work to do, but the freight farm helps us, meet some of those goals for ourselves.
Yeah, and I just remember growing up in high school and college where we would volunteer at local food pantries or food banks, or they would ask for food and it would be outside of a grocery store or something. It was always shelf stable items. Like Kathy, you had touched on in the beginning, it's always, the peanut butter and jellies, the pasta, the mac and cheese. But obviously people need fresh, healthy food, produce that's nutritionally dense and all these things. So like you said, this one freight farm doesn't solve it, but you're working towards a greater solution. So that is amazing. All right, let's focus on the freight farm itself and where it's located. Out of, I think, all 4 of the farms, the food bank had its own challenges with zoning. This can be a challenge for a variety of different reasons for many different farmers out there. It all kind of comes down to your own municipality, your local town, city, your local government, and what they require or what they don't require. So some people may have it a little bit easier if the farm is going to family-owned farmland or whatever the case may be. But Nick, can we talk about your situation about when the food bank, or I'm sorry, when the farm was going to be delivered and kind of the obstacles you faced, and then when it was actually delivered?
Yeah, absolutely. So you hit it right. There were some challenges within the zoning parameters around us having this farm here on our site. So we again operate in 23 counties. We have 2 main facilities, one that we reside in that I housed out of here in Latham, New York, town of Colony, near the Albany airport. We have a facility in our Hudson Valley, and then we have our traditional farm that you heard mentioned in the video. We wanted this to not be at our traditional farm, but to be right here at our facility in Latham, New York. That way we could harvest and literally put it out our doors to our neighbors in need within 24 hours. So we knew we wanted that, and we had the staff here in this building to be able to support it as well. Unfortunately, the town of Colony looks at a freight farm as a storage container because externally that's what it could appear to be, right? And the unknowns. So it took a couple meetings and a little thinking outside the box. The town was very willing to work with us, and we had to kind of just modify how our application was to go in. And we were able to put it in through a building permit in terms of an accessory building structure. So again, just having those honest, open conversations around what it is, the intentions of it. We're obviously doing good being a food bank. Broadview's, thought process around, helping sustain and really solve hunger, it's all for the right reasons. So the town was super supportive, just navigating some of the rules of the law and how to get it here. So initially, we were awarded this and kind of told in that holiday season of, I believe, 2022, and then Freight Farm landed in August of 2023. So a little bit of some challenges, like I said, to overcome, but made it happen and couldn't be happier.
Yeah, zoning can be tricky, and trying to get people to understand what it is that the freight farm is can also be tricky. But for anyone who may be listening to today's conversation and may have experienced some of these hurdles, do you have any advice or tips that you could share about zoning specifically that you encountered or realized afterwards, like, hey, this would have been helpful to know at the beginning?
I think all the information at the beginning was strong. I think my tip would be speak 1,000 words and ask for a meeting quite early on, right? So having a meeting in person, really explaining the why behind what the farm is, how it operates, and then having pictures. We were able to visit Meg's farm. We had photos, and it really helped connect the dots because you can kind of talk about it. It's a storage container. There's hydroponic farming on the inside. But then some of the numbers to it too, right? Nearly 900 heads of lettuce on a weekly basis that's going to come out of this unit and go right into the stomachs of those in need that might be in the line of a soup kitchen or at a backpack program. So we're feeding our community.
Yeah.
I'll also add, one of the things in Schenectady, they were super easy on the permit, but because we wrapped the farm, as you can see in that photo, they considered that a sign. So we did have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a sign. So again, I think what we tried to do with our farm, pass on to the other farm operators, like here's what you need to do and some things you should consider, because we didn't find out about the sign part until almost ready to delivery. So they were super easy. We got it through, but those little tips I think can help people in their process should they want to move forward and get a farm.
Totally. And there's a lot of nuances. It all just comes down to, you know, your local government. So definitely pay attention if this is something they aren't the only people who experience this. They won't be the last who experience this. So I think overall, just having all your tools in your kit to pull out whenever you need to, resources, knowledge about everything. Like Nick mentioned, get a meeting as early as you can to figure out maybe they need something super specific. All right, so now that the farm is, you know, it's August 2023, we're up and running. It's great. Let's talk about the farm itself. Who is the operator of your farm?
Yeah. So here at the Regional Food Bank, our operator name is Liz Gifford. So she was currently on staff and has been for nearly 10 years, a tremendous employee of the food bank, done a multitude of varieties, and is currently our director of green energy. So she formerly is a director of volunteer services, and really able to utilize, you know, the former role to help her cultivate, you know, a few specific volunteers to support her inside the farm, whether it's days off or just in addition, giving her some extra sets of hands for the operation, which has been phenomenal. Organizationally, you know, we have about 125 on staff, but on an annual basis, we have nearly 20,000 volunteers annually see our organization. And it's kind of Kathy and Meg were mentioning their farm and the location of it and where it is. Ours is, you could see in those photos, right at the base of the volunteer ramp. So 20,000 different touches and views, get to see, you know, this wonderful piece, you know, obviously wrapped in kind of that sign as Kathy was mentioning. Broadview and Regional Food Bank working together, you know, so it's just been tremendous. But yeah, you know, back to the original question, Liz Gifford, and she has a little bit of a farming background, kind of similar to Meg, grew up on some homestead land. You know, her folks operate a small farm as well, so it has some of that traditional background.
Perfect. All right, so what is growing in the farm?
Yeah, so I think you've heard it in the video, you heard me talk about it. Cultural relevance means a lot to the organization. These are items that quite often are almost never donated, if ever at all. So currently collard greens, mustard greens, as well as tatsoi are three varieties that we're growing. But similar to Meg, we're listening to our partner agencies. We have nearly 1,000 of them that are out there hearing from their neighbors in their neighborhoods throughout our 23 counties of New York State. And we get feedback from them, quite frankly, almost on a daily basis around what are some of the desires. And we modify our freight farm where possible to be able to add that in, as well as our traditional farm that you heard in the video, 160 acres of land, of which we're tilling between 30 and 40 given the year. So we try to expand our variety and have great diversity that meets the need of all of our neighbors that we serve.
Yeah, that is amazing. All right, so we've touched on a little bit of this throughout the presentation, but I want to focus on, you know, kind of what have been the community reactions, whether it's from people passing by and see it and stop and ask, or like your new hires that you mentioned, Kathy, or the greater community that you donate to, just overall in general for both parties?
So I think for us, when we first got the farm, we were feeding ourselves, right? We have a full service cafe here on site. And so we were using our staff as the guinea pigs, right? You guys try it out, make sure it tastes good. But really, the minute you put a piece of that lettuce in your mouth, it is absolutely delicious. And so I think, who would have, I would say this, who would have thunk, right, that I would be in my role at a credit union managing an agricultural program, right? So I think people can't believe that we have a farm and that we also have an outdoor farm and that we're donating this produce out into the community as a credit union. So it is a little bit unique, but it is absolutely delicious. And so when we went to a full service donation model, we selected some organizations that were feeding people. And one of them is the South End Children's Cafe, as Meg had mentioned. And this organization feeds kids, 60 kids a day, every single day, plus their families. And so they didn't have access to this food. It's a home cooked meal. They have a chef on site. And so we started to bring the lettuce. And now the kids love the lettuce, and they love when they see it coming, and they're super excited about it. And when they go through and select what they would like to have from the menu for dinner, they all get salad. So again, that's a huge shift for them because A, they didn't have it, and B, now they get to have it on a regular basis. And one of the staff members in particular, George, is a favorite of mine. And when I met George, we took our board of directors actually down to the cafe to have dinner, to have dinner with them. And George pulled me aside. He said, "I want you to know your lettuce changed my life." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, "I never had access to healthy food. I never had a salad." Now, George was probably maybe in his 60s, never had a salad. And he started to eat the salad at the cafe. And then he started to change his eating habits in general. He lost 40 pounds, looks absolutely amazing, and now really sees the value in eating healthy because it has changed him. So those are the stories that we are fortunate enough to hear, the impact of what this farm and these farms are doing in our community. They really are changing health. They're changing people's lives. And to have access to this food on a regular basis is pretty amazing. And, we, like I said, it's our honor to give it and our privilege to hear stories of how this lettuce and this produce is really working in our community to, like I said, it's not going to solve hunger altogether. Man cannot live on lettuce alone, but it is a way that we can put a stake in the ground to say, we're going to find this and then expand to other solutions to try to really, really serve our community.
Amazing. I love that. And I just think it's easy for people to forget, or easier for people to forget that not everybody has access to a simple salad. And like George, it could change your life. And just having knowledge in the nutritional value that eating a little bit healthier will do for you goes a long way. But Nick, what about you in the food bank and kind of your reactions from your volunteers or anyone else in the community?
Yeah, that's absolutely tremendous, Kathy, and great story. And, similar here, our reaction from our, partner agencies who are, interfacing with those neighbors in need, kind of that Kathy's sharing about, it's phenomenal, right? It's less than 24 hours of harvest. It's better than anything anyone on this call can likely buy in a grocery store. And I say that, and I'm so proud to be able to provide that to those in need. It's like under 24 hours. It's harvested and out our doors and into into somebody's cart to go home, right? That somebody that doesn't have that salad readily available. But in addition to all those folks, we have a lot of different hits in terms of impact of our community that get to see our building, right? So we're a pretty large organization, nearly 70,000 square foot, and we try to bring in donors and legislative folks as often as possible to kind of talk about what we're doing organizationally and how we're serving those in need. And the freight farms become a definite stop in those tours and pretty lengthy conversation. Can we look inside? What's happening in there? So it's created a lot of good reaction as to something new, different, and innovative that's helping us, come true on our mission and help alleviate hunger.
Awesome. All right. I want to make sure we leave at least 8-ish minutes for questions because we have some coming in. But does any of you have any advice that you'd like to share with, any nonprofit or food bank organization who may be listening that may want to start this or implement this in their program?
Right?
Well, I'll say for the people that are actually going to be running the farms that just to do what you can each day, and eventually you'll get the hang of it and you'll be making unbelievably beautiful product. And just to stick with it and don't give up, because sometimes there'll be hiccups, sometimes there'll be little things that happen, but ultimately you're growing food in such a sustainable way and you're doing really great work, and just keep going and keep doing it and it'll be marvelous in the end.
Perfect. Kathy or Nick, do you have anything to share before we open it up for questions?
I would just say that I mentioned earlier, this program has superseded any expectation I had. It's not just about growing food. It's about changing a community and changing the way folks look at serving individuals who struggle with feeding their families. And I think one of the things this has also done, I think, is really raised the awareness of how much need there really is. And, I think sometimes there's assumptions made. It's people over there struggle with food insecurity, when in fact, it could be your coworker or it could be your neighbor. And so I think it's this journey, I wasn't afraid to take the risk, right? Because I was reassured all along the way that this was going to be successful. But it's by taking risks or thinking, as Nick said, outside the box, that I think really innovative solutions can come forward as we all work to address hunger and hopefully end hunger in our communities.
Amazing. All right. So let's open it up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But to start, Kathy, does Broadview have any plans to potentially implement more of these or expand their agriculture program with more organizations in your community?
Sure. The goal was like I said, start with yourselves and then expand forward. So yes, it is a goal of ours to continue to expand the program. We need to find the right partners in order to do that. So it is certainly on our horizon to be able to do that. Like I said, we started with 6 organic beds up in our parking lot. And now we're up to 31. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, it's beautiful to see, a gathering of 15 or so employees out tending the gardens on a daily basis. So it's such a beautiful thing to witness. And it's really opened other people's minds and hearts to working in our community to serve individuals in need who have the need for fresh food. So it's really kind of cool. So yes, long and short, we do plan to continue and expand.
Perfect. All right. Question for Nick. You briefly touched on this, but where was the food bank sourcing fresh produce prior to having the granary on site?
Yeah, so let me say we still source from other partners, right? So this is just in addition to what we do, nearly 50 million pounds of food, so roughly 12 million pounds of produce on an annual basis, the organization we're moving. So this is in addition, but comes from all kinds of donors. So if you think of any grocery store that you likely go to that's in our service area, Walmart, Target, Hannaford, Price Chopper, you name them, they're a partner and they help us in this need, as well as some of the others that I mentioned, whether it's our U.S. government, USDA Foods, Nourish New York, and all of our farmers. Even though we are in the Northeast, there's still a lot of potatoes and onions and apples that come out of New York State, and they're great partners as well. So a lot of different partners and resources that we use, and this is a beautiful addition that helps us really control that cultural relevance item.
And I think both of you, or all three of you can answer this, but what kind of food safety certifications, licenses, et cetera, did you need to grow and distribute food, if any?
I'll take that one. So early on, I'm very much attuned to food safety, coming from a culinary background. So I looked into what was best for Broadview when we first started, and we actually went to become compliant to a program called the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is a federal program. And I went down to Cornell Cooperative in Orange County in order to take a class on proper farm safety. And we are all what's considered, because we're donating this produce. And even if our farms aren't donating 100% of it, they are what is called qualified exempt from the rule of the Food Safety Modernization Act, because we all make considerably less than $500,000 a year on these things, and we are all distributing to a local area under 200 miles. So, I mean, Nick probably has some of his go a little further than that, but we are very compliant, and I make sure that all of the nonprofit farmers are trained in food safety before we start, and we just go from there.
Yeah, and really to touch on our piece, Amy, organizationally in the food bank, all of our staff goes through a food safety and then more in depth based on particular roles, whether that's in the freight farm, our traditional farm, even our warehouse and our transportation drivers, right? They have a lot more touches with the food than maybe somebody in the office. We have roughly 12 on staff that are Serve Safe certified as well. We also have somebody that's Serve Safe certified to be able to teach those classes. So we have a lot of food safety that's kind of ingrained. We go through America's Institute of Bakery audit done biannually, and that's part of our Feeding America contract, and that's heavily food safety focused. So it's really just, for us, kind of normal operating procedure.
Perfect. All right. What do you both do for packaging?
So we do, we've tried a couple different things over the years. We originally started with shells. We had individual shells, which are excellent because they're so beautiful and they really keep each head of lettuce really perfect. But it ends up being very costly, and also you go through a lot of plastic that way. So for the Boys and Girls Club, they are packaging in plastic bags, and we do hydroponic bags. So they're more of a triangle shape, and we just fold over the top, and we have the food safety compliance sticker that we put over the top, and that's how we just send it out to the different nonprofits.
And we were able to follow Meg's lead. She learned from the shells, and we took on the bags.
Great. Packaging is quite a hot topic for us. There's so many different routes you can take. A lot of trial and error, I think, is best for what your schedule looks like and your customer needs. But yes, clamshells do go through a lot of plastic, unfortunately. All right, so moving on, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but how do you handle the logistics of getting the produce to those in need? I think this one is geared for either of you or both.
So we have pickups. So Meg harvests on certain days, and then the organization will come and actually pick it up from us. So one of those organizations is called the Food Pantries for the Capital District, which is a network of over 70 pantries. So literally they pick up from us and then deliver out across their food pantry network literally the same day. So, it gets to Nick's point within 24 hours. I mean, Meg picks it in the morning, and probably by dinner, it's on someone's table. And then again, we actually deliver some to some of our other partners. So, it goes from us to them, and then they actually disseminate out depending upon who they're serving.
And very similar to honestly how Kathy's doing it. It's just our pickup model is right here at our building. We have a distribution dock where we have our partner agencies, our food pantries and backpack programs, senior facilities. They come on site 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And we have what's called a distribution dock where we have other items as well, produce and dairy, some dry goods available for them to add to orders. And then this is a piece of that inventory mixture. So it's available 5 days a week here at the food bank, and it doesn't last very long once it's there.
Perfect. All right, one final question for both of you, or what is the biggest benefit that you see? Is it the ability to grow what your community wants, having a consistent supply chain, community engagement, anything else?
All of those things. It's really a great combination. And, you know, the feedback that we get from our partners is really amazing. They're just so grateful to have access to this fresh food where they did not before. And so again, we believe over time, you know, 5 years from now, when we ask Mike at the city mission, what are the health outcomes of your community? I'm willing to put a bet that they're better. And so to be able to really impact people's life that day when they're eating it, but then over time, their health and then their life expectancy, you know, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. I mean, everything you said, right, is pretty accurate. We're in the state of New York, so to be able to grow 365 days a year and know what you're going to get when you're going to get, it's unheard of in the food bank world, right? Where, you know, kind of earlier we talked, we're at the mercy of our donors. We open up a truck and surprise, this is what we have. Here's an opportunity for us to take control, be able to grow kind of what some of those requested items are that are culturally appropriate. For those that we're serving, and we do it all year long, which is phenomenal.
Amazing. All right, just like that, we are past our time as always, but we appreciate the three of you taking time to join us, share a little bit more about, you know, Broadview and this program, and then Nick with the food bank side. I think it's a great story and program all around, so we appreciate it. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this was all recorded, so we'll send it out probably later this week, along with some additional resources. We have a kind of nonprofit guide to help provide resources if anyone listening is wanting to implement something like this or a freight farm at their organization. If you have any questions that weren't answered, I know we didn't get to all of them with timing, but we'll make sure to follow up with that as well. And then Meg, Kathy, or Nick, any final words?
No, just thank you for this opportunity to share what I say is good news. We always need good news, right? But this is really a good news story that I hope continues to spread throughout our communities.
Yeah, and likewise, just thank you, Amy. Thank you, Kathy, for even making this a possibility, right? And Broadview in general. So it's wonderful to have great partners here in our community and make our community stronger.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.